This is Felicia Malone of Super Nerdy Church Girl. I'm here again for the Power Review. I believe this is episode 306. Don't go. Wow, we have a lot to discuss this episode. I was like near tears. I'm gonna call this the Irish episode because we got Tommy, we got, Father Callahan. It was just so much Catholic allegory all woven throughout this episode. So let's get started, shall we? The show changes scenes fairly quickly and it goes back and forth between characters. So I find it helpful to group a bunch of scenes with the same characters in one area of the review. So if we want to discuss Ghost and Angie. So we start off, he's dreaming of her and he's telling her the truth. And he's saying, I did this to protect you and I love you. And they're all in white in bed and it's just so, ephemeral. And they're just like, and Angie says, please don't go. He wakes up, he's alone in some loft. I guess he has a temporary apartment or something. And that was that. We see later on that James comes by the apartment to pick up some things. He walks in, he's expecting to find Angela. He finds Paz. And Paz is none too pleased. She greets him with a scowl and she basically goes off on him because he hurt her sister and she knows how much Angela loves him. So he's like, I came to pick up some things. She's like, I already packed it. She throws his stuff on the floor and when he's ready to leave, she's like, if you come near my sister again, I'm going to kill you with my bare hands. And we can see that James, he doesn't like being threatened. But, he takes it on the chin. When he gets ready to walk out, Paz holds her hands open, and he gives her the key. After that scene, we are back into, I call it the fallout. The fallout of the Lobos botched transfer, which led to his murder. We know now that the investigators know that Lobos is dead, so that means they found his body. And they're introducing a new character. Well, I'm going to call her Internal Affairs. She's in the office and she's basically telling their head boss, I know that there's a leak in your department and I'm here to find it. And she goes through the process of interviewing each of the task members who were on the task force to move Lobos. Starting with Mr. Michael Sandoval. Mike, he basically is, playing this cat and mouse game. We can see that he's a little nervous, but he knows that the investigator, she doesn't know too much, so he's still, playing as if he has an ace or something in his deck of cards. So they go from interviewing Mike to interviewing Angie. When they're interviewing Sandoval, he points to Angie because he's like, yeah, I got the transfer orders for Lobos, but Angie signed the documents. So if you recall from last episode, he went to Angie and he's like, these are the transfer papers for Lobos. I need you to file these tonight. He emphasized that they had to go right away, which meant, Angie ended up putting her signatures on all of the official paperwork. So when they are talking to Angie, she finds out that Lobos is dead. And now she's connecting the dots and she's like, okay, I told Jamie that Lobos wasn't dead initially after the prison attack. And then she's thinking Jamie killed Lobos. I mean, she knows it. So the investigator's like, well, you seem really broken up about Lobos' murder. And she's like, yeah, because I really wanted to get him. But inside she's reeling because inch by inch, it's becoming clear that Jamie killed Lobos. He used her for intel. And if they find out, it's over for her and Jamie. So then they go to Sax, which I found this to be like so funny. So Sax is the blonde hair investigator guy. And all throughout the season I kept wondering like what's the point of him being here? Like what's his deal? So then during the interview they're basically asking him, about the Lobos transfer, and he points out that Greg and Angela had this thing. But he didn't think that they were in on it. He just thought Greg just really was fixated on Angie because she broke up with him. And they let it out the bag that he has some type of, he's into something that's embarrassing because he's like, what, you keep track of that type of thing? But they never say what it is. So I'm just wondering if they're ever going to let that cat out of the bag and what it is and what other significant roles Sax has, because he's still one of those questionable characters. And so is the next guy, Donovan. So Donovan was the black investigator who came in on the Lobos transfer. And he was pretty much in charge of the movement. And he's the one who said he wanted his best men on it and blah, blah, blah. So he's cleared fairly quickly as well. So they have this scene where the head investigator, Angela, she gets all discombobulated and asks to go to the restroom. So the head investigator later comes in and follows her in the restroom. And they having this little conversation, and she basically says, she tells Angela that she has the skills, meaning she's young and beautiful, to get these men to bend to her will. She knows about the relationship with she and Greg. And she says, word of advice, she says of herself, she misses that part of the job, and she tells Angela, get yourself a judge's bench before you turn into a pumpkin. So that's going to come into play later when she's interviewing Angela, and she basically, when she interviews Greg, he tells her to talk to Angela about her relationship with James St. Patrick. So when Angela gets back in the investigators, the interrogation room, I will say, the investigator basically hits her, in the below the belt. She's like, yeah, James St. Patrick used you. He saw you. All he saw in you was another woman. And we women are smarter than men, but then we fall in love and then we do stupid things. And it was just like, wow. You can see that she's getting to Angela, and then Angela kind of flips the script. She's like, he didn't use me. I used him. I used him for intel to get. She used him for intel to get Ruiz. I think it was Ruiz. So we go through that whole rigmarole, which leads to a later scene where has Paz text James and says she wants to meet him. So we get to the scene where she and James are in her apartment, and she's pretty much begging him for the leak because she's like, you're gonna let me get the death penalty for something I didn't do. And James is still trying to, do the whole ghost thing and negotiate and wiggle his way out. And she's like, please, you gotta help me. And he basically doesn't cave, but she gets upset, she leaves, and he says, please don't go. And if you recall in the opening scene when they're dreaming, she's saying, please don't go, but he's saying it in reality. So I wanted to get those James and Angie out of the way. Tommy and Julio in Ghost, they come into the club and they see Andre. And Andre walks up to Tommy, and Tommy is like not feeling him whatsoever. And so Andre tries to, make amends. He's like, I was just doing what I had to do. And then Tommy gives him the finger. It was like all kinds of, disrespectful. So they're at the club, and because Milan's men are all over the club, everywhere James looks, James asks Tommy to come outside and talk to him. He leaves Julio and Andre in the club. So when they get outside, Tommy is talking to James, and James is like, dude, what's with this attitude? Because Tommy is really feeling himself. He has been running the operation since Jamie decided to do the club thing. And now that the gang is back together, it's like James wants to assume that primary role, and Tommy is really not having it. So James was like, this attitude of yours is going to get us killed. And while they're having their little tete-a-tete, Milan's men come up to them and they're like, basically get in the car. So they get in this car, and we see this scene where it's like James can't catch a break. It's like wherever he turns, it's this unwanted presence in his space. You have, when he was in the club, he would look up, he would see Milan's men walking around, and they all had eyes on him all the time. And when they go outside, Milan's men pick them up. And they drive them to the warehouse, the same warehouse they would use to, beat people up and all that stuff. And Tommy's like, how do they know about this place? Milan's like, I know everything. So, when they get there, they see the guys who are running Tommy's drugs. They're all like zip tied up in the corner somewhere. And he tells Tommy he's going to use his own men, that he's not going to run drugs through the church anymore, and to fire Father Callahan. And Tommy's like, I ain't firing him. He's like, okay, well, kill him. And then Tommy's like, I'm not going to kill him just because you said kill him. So Tommy is like really feeling himself. And James is just looking like he really doesn't know who he's messing with. So then he tells, he has a guy in there that's one of his own men. He takes this cord, he walks over, he strangles this guy to death in front of James and Tommy. So then he goes back over and he tells James, and you're going to sell drugs out of your clubs. He's like, I need you to make this deal happen with, what's her name, Karen Abbott, because you're going to run drugs out of your club. And James is like, I can't do that, it's too risky, blah, blah, blah. And he's basically like, he and Tommy are challenging Milan's authority. And we're going to see how that comes back to bite them in the butt later. So I just want to say, like, although it's good to see James shook, I'm going to say that. I'm not going to say he's my least favorite character on the show, because he is the show. I love him. He's a handsome guy. He's great to watch. He's just so charismatic. But in the pursuit of his own dream or desire, he's just left a trail of hurt, of dead bodies, of broken hearts. And it's just like, well, yeah, everybody will get over it as long as I get what I want. It's all good. And now we're seeing where karma is like catching up with him. Milan throws him a curveball. So earlier in the scene, we'd had this meeting with Karen, and Karen is basically like, okay, I'm going to bring you in as one of our investors, but we need the cash today. So Ghost's like, okay, yeah, cool. Well, now when he's in this warehouse with Milan, Milan tells him, okay, I need the money for the product up front. And so Tommy's like, I ain't paying up front for no product, I can't test it. So he's really still challenging Milan. And so then after this whole thing, Ghost has the audacity, emphasis on all those syllables, to run to Tasha and say, yeah, I need some money. And Tasha's like, what? And he tells her, well, I have to, do this deal. And he doesn't tell her the whole truth. He doesn't tell her about Milan or whatever. But he's like, he just needs some legit cash. Because she take it from the kids' trust fund and the, IRA or something. And Tasha, for once, doesn't do what Ghost wants her to do. And she's basically like, no, I'm not going to do it. Because if the clubs take a hit, you're going to put the money in the clubs and you won't, and screw the kids over. And he's just like, those are our kids, I wouldn't do that. And she's just like, no, why don't you go ask Angela? So then he tells her that they've broken up, but he didn't want to get into it. And she's still just like, nope, find another way. I'm just like, the audacity. How can you give a woman separation papers one day and then come and ask her for a favor to take money? Now we know Tasha's stashing cash, but you want her to take money from her kids' accounts and their IRA, which is her safety net, to, for you? Like, Ghost has some nerve, that's all I'm gonna say. So after Ghost failed an attempt to get the money from Tasha, he has to go and relay that news to Karen and her dad. She brings her dad to this meeting. And so the dad's just like, well, clearly you're not in a financial position to hang with the big. He says clearly you're not in a financial position to join our team. I'm just like, he's really saying you can't hang with the big dogs. So Karen's like, well, he has a till the end of the day dad. So when her dad like walks off in a huff, she leans into Jamie. She's like, yo, get the money. So he has to find a way to come up with this money. So we see later on, Tommy goes to Tasha to get the cashier's check because they have to, the money that he was going to give Karen to invest in the clubs, he has to put in a cashier's check and give to Milan to pay up front for the cocaine Milan is making Jamie and Tommy sell for him. So we see Tommy at Tasha's apartment, and he looks at the check or whatever, and he gets ready to leave, and then Tasha goes, why did you do that to Holly? And then Tommy's like, what? She's like, Ghost told me. And so Tommy's just like, he told you? Because Tommy's thinking the murder and Tasha's thinking the baby. So Tasha, just running her mouth, tells Tommy as he's getting on the elevator that yeah, I didn't think you would treat her like that because she's pregnant and now she's off somewhere. And Tommy's just like in a daze because the weight of everything that he's really done. Not only has he killed Holly, but he's killed his own child. I mean, he is like it's like he's losing it. And then Tasha's like, what's wrong? And he's like, I gotta go. I have to go give this check or whatever. I have to deposit this check. So there's a scene where he's in the elevator and he's really just kind of like, his eyes are going in the back of his head, his mouth is open, he's kind of like reeling back and forth, like he is really detached from reality. And we see this scene where he goes to Father Callahan, the church, and he's, in the confessional again. And so Father Callahan is like, we don't have a meeting. But Tommy starts talking, and he was like asking him about that thing he had to do. He's like, yeah, I got a way around it. But he's basically really confessing without really saying it. He's like, I did something terrible that I can't take back. And Father Callahan says you have to find a way to forgive yourself. And Tommy's like, why would I want to forgive myself? So he's really beating himself up, rightfully so, because he killed somebody. But, Tommy's in this confessional with the gun because remember, Milan tells him to kill Father Callahan. So then he tells Father Callahan, you got to stop running guns for the Albanians. And then Father Callahan's like, that's how we get the money for the roof and for the church. And he's like, stop running the effing guns. And he clicks the gun. So Father Callahan knows something, like his life is in danger. And Tommy says something very key. He says, let me do this one thing right. So we see that he is attempting that Tommy isn't just a coked out murderous drug dealer, which he is, but he also has a conscience, and it's like falling in love with Holly brought out the humanity in him. And now that she's gone, it's like he has this void. And so it's almost like he wants to do good to fill that void or do something good for someone. Instead of take a life, save a life. So he basically tells him, he has to do this, let him do this one thing good. And so Father Callahan's like, okay, no more guns. So we see Tommy walk out of the church, and then he goes to Holly's grave. He's drunk, and he's talking to her. And then we hear a car door, and out pops 5 Serbians. And Tommy's like, what, you want a piece of this? And they shock him with a taser. And I'm just like, okay, this next scene, like my heart nearly broke because they are in the warehouse and we have all these Serbians and they didn't strip my Tommy. And I'm just like, oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling. Because I'm thinking they're going to kill my Tommy boy. And so we hear this guy tell him to kill him, and they're just like, boom. First of all, Tommy doesn't go out like a punk. He's just, he gets a couple good licks in. But of course, they overpower him, and they're just beating the living crap out of him. And I watched the end of the episode with Courtney Kent, and she's like, it's almost like penance, you know, for the murder of Holly. He's taking this beating, and there's blood out of his mouth, and then he's basically, it's almost like he gives up and he wants to die because he's in so much pain. He basically tells them, you know, just go ahead and do it. And Milan comes in, he's like, you know, you're not, you know, stupid like Vladimir said, or you're not simple. He's like, this is actually, and he sees the Holly's ring on his neck. He's like, oh, is this about the girl? He's like, actually, you don't have anyone. He's like, you have no attachments. As in, this is the best time to be alive. So Vladimir sees the potential in having someone like Tommy on his team, somebody with nothing to lose. And he tells them, you know, to leave him alone. So this leads us to kind of like the, I'm not going to go to the final scene yet. I want to go to, since we're on Milan. So earlier, James had told Andre was like, I went back in the business, I see what's going on. And so he's like, Jamie needs him. He needs him to get Milan off his back. So he walks him outside, he tells him what's going on. And he gives him that Serbian chick, Tatiana Borskaya or something. He gives Andre her picture and asks him to phone in an anonymous tip. And he gives that to Andre, and we see later Kanan has been peeping what's going on, so he saw Tommy and Ghost together. And so he hems up Andre when he goes out to take the trash. It's like, I thought you said they weren't working together. And then Andre's like, well, it caught me off guard. And so then he starts giving Kanan basically intel. So Kanan knows about Milan, he knows about the anonymous tip, he knows about everything. So Milan decides to take it up a notch. He was gonna kill Tommy, but then he, you know, as I previously told you. So then it comes to Ghost, because Ghost also challenged him. So Ghost is at Tasha's house to talk to Tariq because Tariq is still acting out. He basically called his mom an effing liar. She goes to smack him and he grabs her hand. And so then Tasha makes him go to his room and she calls Ghost and it's like, you better come get your son before I kill him. And she calls him Ghost on his voicemail, which I thought was very kind of dumb because I'm like, if the DA is trying to prove who Ghost is, why does she so recklessly use that term, you know? But anyway, so he's having this one-on-one conversation with Tariq, and Tariq's like, I didn't hit her, I just stopped her from hitting me. And he's like, you don't raise your hand to your mom ever, and go apologize. So then Tariq's like, you want me to apologize like I apologized to your side B? And I was just like, no, Tariq. No, Tariq, don't do it. It's kind of like that scene in The Color Purple when the white lady asks Sophia to be her maid, and she says, hell no. And the white lady slaps her. And we have Lawrence Fishburne's character. He's like, no, Miss Sophia. Don't, Miss Sophia. That's how I felt about Tariq. Man, James turned straight Ghost. He grabbed him by his collar, lifted him up. He said, what you say to me, you little mother, blah, blah. And it's like Tariq has like the fear of God in his eyes, and Ghost catches himself because he was really about to like wring this little boy's neck. And so when he catches himself, he puts him down. Tariq pushes him and he walks off into his room. So Tasha comes in and she's like, why didn't you tell me you were having dinner guests? And James was like, what? James was like, what? He walks in and oh my gosh, it is Milan and Tatiana standing at their door with food. And he's like, we brought dinner. And James it's like he's losing it. Everywhere he turns, he cannot get a break from Milan. The only place they haven't been yet is to Angela's apartment. So they sit down and they have this dinner, and they get ready to leave, and Tasha's cleaning up or whatever. So it's Ghost and Milan, and Milan's just like, you're gonna run drugs out of your clubs, and he was like, it's too risky. Milan's like, I'm in here with your family, that's risky. So Tatiana walks over, and she's like, haha, look at his face. Did you see his face? He thought I was dead. And so Tasha walks up, and they, turn on the fake smiles and say, okay, thanks for coming, see you later. And when Milan and Tatiana leave, Tasha's like, what is going on? So now Ghost takes her outside, and she's like, why are we out here? She's like, outside meaning on their, I don't know if you call it veranda, balcony, because they have like a pool, so it's really fancy. And he tells her, like, he's the scariest man I've ever encountered, the most dangerous man. She's like, more dangerous than Kanan. He's like, Kanan was a street thug. This is a whole nother level. Keep that in mind. So then the last scene, we see Kanan, old, evil, nasty. I can't stand him. I don't know why he's still breathing. I hope Milan takes him out. He is helping this older lady up the stairs with her groceries. And she's like, oh, you used to stay in one of my buildings? And he's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And having this conversation. Now, during that time, Drake calls and gives him all the intel about Milan and Ghost or whatever. So when he gets off the phone with Dre, the older woman has opened her door. And we see Kanan look around. He pushes the old woman down, locks the door, and gets on top of her and strangles her to death with the Jesus Saves pillow. And I'm just like, really? Really? Like, Kanan is pure evil. I don't know if he is, well, when we think about names meaning things, like Angela's sister Paz means peace, and Canaan in the Bible is like, Paz is the opposite of peace. Well, Canaan in the Bible was like the promised land of the Israelites, where they were leaving Egypt, to go dwell in the land of Canaan. But Canaan here is not a promised land. He's the opposite. He is just like evil incarnate. So that was pretty much it for the episode. It's really setting up this whole new set of enemies and new challenges. And when we see the flashes of the next upcoming scenes, we're seeing where Ghost and Angie have to work together to clear their name. So I'm very interested to see how the writer's going to play this. I will just say that when they were beating up my boy Tommy, I was just like, I swear, if they kill Tommy, I'm done. I can't watch it. I can't go on. Because legit, Tommy is my favorite character on this show. He really is. And it's funny because I took this quiz, which character are you from Power, on Facebook, and I got Angie Valdez, which is crazy. But I would say Tommy's my favorite. Angie's my favorite. I know I'm going against the grain because everybody's Team Tasha. I don't like the fact that she's cheating with Jamie, but I do like the fact that she's smart and she's tough. And I'm going to say in order of that, it's going to be Tommy, Angie, Tasha, and then Ghost. So he's my least favorite, but I really do like him. I really like all of them because, I love the show. It's very intriguing. So I will talk to you guys later. Maybe I'll have my voice back by then. You guys have a great day.